Hello everyone, welcome to my new show, Money Talks. I'm super excited to be launching this channel. It's been in works for a while now. Money Talks is going to be basically a conversation with everyday individual talking about their journey towards building their personal finances, learning more about money, and even building wealth. Right? So join me on this journey, and I'm really excited to have you on this train with me. On the first episode today, we are going to be talking about why you need to build or to perform a personal financial audit. And I think it kind of is at the right timing, seeing as we're just entering a new year. I know a lot of people have spent quite a lot of money throughout the dirty December period, but this will be a perfect time to talk about the need to do a personal financial audit. So really, what is a personal financial audit? A personal financial audit is basically a record of how you are doing, a snapshot of how you are doing financially, right? And in this case, what you want to do is capture all your income, if you have multiple streams of income, all your expenses, and if you have any other liabilities. So liabilities will be like if you have a loan or debt that you are servicing. And for today's conversation, I'll probably just use an arbitrary person's name to kind of just paint how that looks like. So I'll probably advise that you get a pen and a paper and follow me through this journey. What you'll probably do, so we'll say, let's imagine a friend named Tunde. He works in a company in Ikeja and he earns about 200,000 naira every month. And let's assume that he stays in Ketu. Now, for this use case, Tunde is a single young man and he probably lives alone, so he has bills to pay as well. And so we'll just create like some of the bills that Tunde has to pay on a monthly basis. If you look through some of those bills, you'll see things like transport. Tunde has to go into the office on a monthly basis. So let's assume Tunde spends between 20 to 30,000 naira. For this case, we just say Tunde spends 30,000 naira every month on transportation. And then Tunde has to eat, right? And this will be a function of all the amount of money he spends both eating out and eating at home. And we'll do let's say another 30,000 naira. That makes it 60,000 naira that is already gone out of his monthly expense. Tunde has to buy internet for his devices, his phone, his computers. So put another budget of like 15,000 naira depending on the internet service provider that you use. Tunde has bills for his house as well, like things like for waste disposal and basically for running their house. So we'll put another, let's say 15,000 naira that goes into that every month. I think that brings us to about 90,000 naira already that Tunde has to spend on a monthly basis. And then you probably have other line items that varies from individual to individual. The goal really is just basically to say, what are the items I spend monthly on, and then capture all of that. So if it varies for you, take out time to ensure you capture each of those line items on that piece of paper. Now, in this case, the assumption would then be that if this is all the bills that Tunde spends on, and assuming Tunde has not borrowed money or doesn't owe anybody any money, it means that on a monthly basis, Tunde is spending approximately just about 100,000 naira every month. That is defined expense that goes out of his account. Now remember, these are not expense items, one-off items that suddenly comes up within the month. These are items he knows he has to spend money on every single month, right? Now, how I did it and why this is very, very important is that doing this paints a picture for you, right? Because a lot of the time when people are talking about, finances, their focus a lot of the time is, I need to make more money. But if you don't even have a sense of how much money obviously you know how much you earn, if you don't have a sense of how much you spend and where you spend that money on, it will be very difficult for you to optimize or even improve your income or your finances in that sense. Now, if this was the scenario for Tunde that he doesn't have any other expense, it would then be that Tunde spends about 90 to 100,000 naira every month, and so he has 100,000 naira that is available for any other expense that is not defined. Now, what I have seen for a lot of people and how I struggled for a few years ago was because that extra 100,000 naira wasn't defined, as expense came through the month, it was just eating away at the 100,000 naira. That most times at the end of every new month, there was nothing left or available to actually from the previous month's salary. But one interesting hack that I figured out that has worked extremely well for me, that I'm also probably recommending that you try out and see how that works for you as well, is to define what I call like your miscellaneous budget, right? And that miscellaneous budget could be for things that are unplanned for. You need to hang out with friends on the weekend. You need to, a friend is getting married, you need to attend the wedding, get them a gift. Somebody needs, an uncle or a family member needs you to support them with something that is not planned for throughout the month. And you can then define that. So let's imagine in Tunde's case that he defines that every month I'm going to put 50,000 naira aside as well for all unplanned expenses throughout the month. In this case, it will mean that if we capped it at 50,000 naira, it will mean that Tunde's month expense now jumps up to 150,000 naira, right? Now, the beautiful thing about doing that is that it means that without even thinking about it, Tunde can comfortably or effectively save 50,000 naira, which will go to like his rent. Because remember, in this expense structure, we didn't talk about rent, since rent is paid annually here in Nigeria. Now, what that does for you is every single month, or the way I've approached it over time is every single month, immediately that salary comes in, as I pay all those other bills, the extra 50,000 naira that would have been left after my miscellaneous is deducted, I will ensure that I get that I get to save that immediately or invest that immediately into something else, right? And so, meaning that all I have left, or my capped available spendable income, then becomes extra like 50,000 naira that can go into any item that is not planned for during the month. Just enforcing that discipline makes sure that you do not end up spending all the extra income that is left at the end of every month, and it starts building up over time. Now, that small hack that I started doing over a period of time, I've seen that it has improved my ability to save and even potentially even your ability to invest. Because a lot of the time when I see conversations, people talking about, especially around finances, the focus usually is around two main areas. It's, I need to earn more money, I need to earn more money. But I've realized that, yes, which is obviously a valid point, but I've realized that a lot of the time it is a lot more easier to optimize your expenses than to potentially increase your earning potential. Obviously, it's possible, but the impact will take months. So if you need to improve your earnings, most likely you probably need to learn a new skill or take a new course or do something that takes a few months to maybe a year or more for that to reflect in how much you earn, as opposed to your expense, which you can take a clear picture of and say, hey, why am I spending this much on this expense item, and how can I potentially cut down on it a bit more further? And if you're able to cut down on that expense, it means that the income that extra cash flow becomes available for you to spend on something else, or for you to save, or for you to invest. Now, but a lot of people say, but what if I have a miscellaneous that is going to be more than that 50,000 naira? Yes, that definitely happens, and it has happened to me several times. What I have done in those cases is, hey, there's nothing else left. Remember, the extra 50,000 naira in that situation for Tunde's case was already saved or invested immediately, meaning that it is not even sitting in your account and it's not available for you to spend. So even if you wanted to, that cash flow is no longer available. You've invested it or you've saved it in an account that is earning you some form of interest. And that way you can then move all those unplanned expenses, especially if they're not life-threatening, into the coming month. Right now, this is also just assuming that your income is able to cover all of your expenses. If it is not able to cover all of your expenses, I feel like the biggest key point when you do this exercise is to say, in the immediate term, how can I cut down on some of these my expense item in the areas that I can cut down? What areas can I cut down a bit more further, just so that at least my expense is just within my income level, and then figure out the courses and the skills you can learn to open you up to better earning potential. Or potentially, like what other people have done that I have also seen, is think around what other side hustle, as people call it, or a side business that people can do as a way to supplement their income. Because the goal really is you need to get to a point as a baseline where the income you're earning is able to cover at least the baseline of your core monthly recurring cost structures. Once that is done, then that is the only time that it makes sense to start thinking about savings or investment. Because if you can't cover your costs, then any conversation around the need to save or the need to invest will not make any sense to that individual. So My advice today for you will be, and doing this for me a few years ago was really helpful, will be take out time, pause this video, take a pen and a paper, and capture all the income that you have if you have multiple streams of income, all the core expense items. Remember the expense items that are defined that you usually spend on a monthly basis. Capture every single one out. You might not have a clear picture of how much is the figure you spend on it. You can put what is an assumed figure, right? If you tried working with that budget after a month or two, you can recalibrate the figures to what are much more realistic levels, but put a figure behind each line item. So if you're on transportation, on feeding, on internet, just literally capture every single one of them, right? And then total what that value is. If you have any existing debts or any loans you've taken out, capture that as well. And a good way as well might be, as you capture that, think around how you can also move that into maybe like into monthly repayments that will go into your expense sheet as well until that debt is fully repaid. I feel like when you do this exercise, or when I did this exercise, it was a very revealing exercise for myself, because it allowed me see in a clear single sheet of paper where I was financially, which is why we call it an audit, right? Or it's called an audit, right? Because it shows you a clear picture of how you're doing financially. And then because you have that clear picture now, we can then start talking about how can you optimize your expenses, what are other areas or activities you can do just immediately to actually improve what your financial state is from that sheet of paper, from what that piece of paper is telling you, and then from there grow financially. But like I said, for this exercise to work, one, you have to be very honest with yourself. You have to be open. You have to tell yourself the truth. It is your money, it is you, it's in your own quiet and private space, but be very honest with yourself when you do this exercise and capture in detail every single item that relates to your personal finance. I'll really be interested to see how this goes for you, as I know it has been very helpful for me in my own personal journey and my own personal financial journey. It will be interesting to hear what the exercise reveal for you. Hopefully you get to do it. I'll be looking forward in the comment section to hear what did the exercise reveal for you? What did you learn out of this entire episode? What are some other interesting areas around finance and money generally, or even building wealth, that you would like us to also have conversations about? In the episodes to come, we'll be having guests on the show where we'll talk about different areas around building wealth and managing your personal finance, whether it is even thinking around dealing with black tax, which is something that is very predominant in our communities. Why do you choose to use the bank that you currently use today for your finances, right? Most people do not give any deep thoughts into the reason why they use their current banker. At what point should you be considering investing or saving, and what are some of the things to think around all of this even as you go through this journey? Remember, like I said, the goal of this show, of this entire channel, is to have conversations with everyday individuals in their own journeys, building their own personal wealth, and all their learnings and their mistakes in all of as they go through that journey. Doing this audit for me a few years ago was really helpful, and it was the pivotal point for me to help streamline my own finances. So I hope by sharing that with you, it is something that you find very useful. If you've done an audit for yourself, maybe a few years ago, you've done it before, I'd like to know your own experience, your own thoughts. And yeah, let's figure out how to improve on our journey to building wealth individually. Thank you. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video, and leave a comment. Let me know what are your thoughts, how did the exercise go for you, and what else you would like to see in the coming weeks.